we're starting a little bit early so that we can show a great slideshow that was put together by our volunteer photographers, John Nation and Joe Wallach. And it is about the Ohio River Challenge, but it includes many of our Ohio River town review towns.
1, 2, 3, 5! You guys were great! You guys look great.
Wow, that was really great. Nothing speaks volumes like connecting communities by that paddle that they did. And didn't it look like fun? I mean, if I would have known that there were charcuterie paddles being passed about, I probably would have gone on the rest of that trip too. So many, many thanks to John Nation and Joe Wallach for their photography. They also took pictures of most of our Rivertown Review towns, and you'll see some more of their work at the end of our program. I'd like to mention.
Let me jump in real quickly and say thank you to Susan Griffin Ward for her photography in that as well. Thanks. This is John.
Okay, thank you. It was a really beautiful video, and David has already put the link to it in the chat if you came in a little bit late and want to catch the entirety, and I'm sure it'll be on the Ohio Riverway website as well. I wanted to thank David Wicks for hosting us on this Zoom meeting. Thank you, David. And I wanted to remind you again, please try to put one word that describes what a successful Ohio River town looks like. One word would be helpful. And if you want to do more than one word, make sure you hit enter again. We have plans for these words. So welcome. I am Andrea Ireland. I'm with the National Park Service Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance Program. We have been working on a project of the River Town Reviews for the past 2 years as a project with the Ohio Riverway with our good friends David Wicks, Brewster Rhodes, and Francis Manone. And today marks kind of the completion of this project. And we're going to tell you all about what we have done, the process, what some of our results were, some of the really cool things that we learned, some similar goals that we saw common amongst all of the towns. And we will be celebrating our Rivertown Review project. So here's our agenda. Again, thank you for joining us. You might be wondering why the National Park Service is here. We are a program of the National Park Service that goes out into communities and helps them to get projects done, helping them to realize on-the-ground success with projects in conservation and outdoor recreation and connecting communities, which is perfect for this project. We are going to be rolling out and debuting our Rivertown Review report summary that we will feature many of the pages on the slides within our program today. It will be available on the Ohio Riverway website, and it will also, we will send out a link to everybody who has joined us so that you can view it yourself. It is going to be printed, but alas, it is stuck somewhere in the government printing office. And someday when I find it, it will be available to you if you would like a hard copy as well. We put a lot of work into it, and I think you'll be really pleased with the results. Let's see. So this is our agenda. We're going to go over the project scope and how we did these Rivertown reviews. We're going to talk about the many reports that we made specifically for each community, and then also the summary report. And within that, we're going to let you know about some of the results that were cumulative or similar to all of the towns, and then our recommendations. We're also going to hear from Donnie Ledbetter, who is the NPS Office of Tourism Program Manager. He's a one-man show, and he has a lot to say about this project that we've been working on. We also have a piece from the Ohio River Way that will talk about the future of what these river towns connecting looks like. And we have a few kudos. Don't get too excited. These are not Oscars or Emmys, but we just want to recognize a few towns and a few things that we saw along the way. They're also featured in the summary report. And then we'll talk about what's next. So what's coming down the pike, how you can utilize your Rivertown reviews, and how to better connect with communities. We'll also be looking at the summary, and we'll be hearing from you as well. Either in the chat, we welcome you to put your questions or your comments in there. And also, if you have the ability to raise your hand when we have time for questions, feel free to do that. So, hold on a second. Okay, so this is a rendezvous. This is a gathering of those towns that have been through our Rivertown Review program. And it is for those towns that we primarily did this. We wanted to get them back together and see if what kind of progress they've had. So you will be hearing from them. But we also have a number of visitors. So hold on one second here. I have way too many screens open. That's the problem here. So if you are one of the Rivertown Review folks, came from one of these towns and had joined us in the Rivertown Review, we ask you to put your name in the chat box right now with your organization and what town you're from, so we can get an idea of who has joined us. You know, this project has been underway for 2 years, so some of the people really ended up doing their Rivertown Review years ago. And it's been a while. So we're asking them to really tap into how much progress, how they use those reports. And you'll hear that we learned a lot along the way too. Okay, so we've got all of the people from the river towns putting their names and communities within the chat box. And then we're going to have our visitors, and we welcome a lot of visitors. We have 64 people on the call today. So that's really good. We have people from all over the country, and we have other members of the National Park Service RTCA team. We have elected officials from other communities who really want to see what this is about. And we have people who are just fond of the Ohio River and want to know more. All right, so if you are one of those visitors, go ahead and put your name in the chat box now with your organization in your town, and you'll get to see how many people are here that didn't take part in this, but will want a Rivertown Review because they're going to see how much fun it was and how beneficial it was to the communities that have done it. All right, we have, look at those names coming in. John from Omaha, Nebraska. All right. Brewster, you want to work your magic and say hello to some of those people?
What are you talking about? There are so many wonderful folks here. It's just great to have them from Portsmouth to West Point. The West Point, by the way, has a wonderful turnout here, as does Portsmouth. It's interesting that the two anchor communities have been really kick butt in turnout of mayors and future mayors and city council people, and it's just wonderful. So hats off to all of you for taking the time to join us today.
Yes.
We also, by the way, we also have some folks who are brand new to their positions, but they're critical, like Andrew Forrester, the new executive director of Visit Madison, just came on board, and it's a wonderful operation there in Madison. And there's also a woman who's wonderful as well. I haven't met her personally, but Caitlin Barley, I believe, who was the new executive director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Mason County and Maysville. So we have new folks stepping into leadership roles within the region. It's great.
Woo, woo, anchor towns, yeah. We also, there's a lot of people on here from towns that maybe didn't go through the review process, but are looking at ways that they can improve their Ohio River towns in connecting to other communities, promoting outdoor recreation. And we will show you that there's lots of ways that they can do that even without a Rivertown review. All of the great tools that we're putting in place and the experiences that we gained from working with the Rivertown reviews that we did do. Okay, so keep them coming there.
And Andrea, I'm sorry, I misspoke about Caitlin's name from Matt from Maysville, and it's Caitlin Bailey, and we welcome her to this group here today.
Okay, so yeah, thank you all for coming. This is a really great turnout. There's even some people waiting in the waiting room, and right now we're up to 64 people. That's great. I'm going to turn it over to my co-worker and partner in crime on this project, Russ Clark. He's with the Southeast Regional Office. And we don't get to work together across regions very often, but this really has demonstrated that it's beneficial to do that. And it has been a delight to work with Russ across the river. And he is going to talk a lot about the process that we went through.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and welcome everyone. This is a pilot project. As we started out, we looked around the room when we first met and saw a lot of talent, and we wanted to take one goal in mind. What can we do to benefit the communities along the Ohio River? And we essentially brainstormed a Rivertown review process, which is very similar to Trail Town processes. And it basically is fresh eyes approach to enhance outdoor recreation and tourism in communities along the river. So this is, again, a pilot project for RTCA. We are hoping to continue to enhance this process and ultimately put together a toolkit for others across the country to continue to do this same type of process in other communities. So we are receiving national attention with this project and with the Ohio River itself. And we plan to distribute this information to everyone who is interested in the future so that they can continue this process both on the Ohio and other communities across the country. We want to acknowledge our key partners with the National Park Service. We also Rivers Trails Conservation Program, several staff involved. The Ohio Riverway, their partners and their volunteers, and the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail is all part of this process. And the Lewis and Clark eastward expansion overlaps with this section of the Ohio River. And all of the communities that were part of the Rivertown review process saw how that overlap can benefit them in national recognitions. What you have before you is a regional map. Also, we've identified on the Ohio River that in the 274 miles, 12 Rivertown review sites that were done for 14 communities. As we continue to look at this, we want to look at the process. And when we first started this process, we intended to go out and meet in the communities themselves and provide a hands-on, quick charrette process of analysis and recommendations. COVID restrictions prevented travel, so we utilized volunteers from our partners to help with some feet on the ground and some eyes on the site. And we essentially, through the time, developed a 5-step process. And first step was basically, requested a review and approval to have a Rivertown review done. Pre-workshop tasks were pretty specific. We did a desktop review of the internet presence of each community with volunteers, and we had a community visit done by volunteers following a checklist that was created for things to look for within the community. We actually did the Rivertown Review workshop online for all 12 reviews, and we engaged the community and harvested ideas through those online input processes. And then following the workshops, we did summarize all of the input that we received. We collected the homework that was assigned and prepared and edited a report and provided a hard copy report to our project partners. That 5-step process is pretty straightforward, and we have done it over and over again. Those of you that were part of the Rivertown review process will recognize some of these images. In round 1, we did all of the community input process for SWOT analysis and community brainstorming, collecting that information in the chat box. It was pretty challenging, but we did gather that information. We were able to provide some recommendations based on that input and produce reports as a result of it. In rounds 2 and 3, we enacted the Mural interactive software where folks could do Post-it notes in real time and then provide the opportunity for them to vote on their priorities of all the different ideas generated. And we looked at the SWOT analysis, the brainstorming, looking for short-term and long-term goals that could be applied for each of the community. We asked to help identify additional stakeholders who should be involved in this process. And we were always looking for ways to connect to other river towns up and down the river. Next slide. As a result, we produced 12 Rivertown review reports. And through those reports, we were able to generate, again, identifying the process, identifying the steps taken, what we learned from the community through the SWOT analysis and the brainstorming, some general recommendations, some specific short-term immediate action steps, then followed by some short-term and long-term goals for the community to follow with. And ultimately, we created an extensive list of resources for the community to explore once they receive their report to continue with that initiative. So now we'd like to hear from you, from the folks who participated in this process. Could you go into the chat box or raise your hand online, and we will try and acknowledge you to tell us what did you find useful or most helpful about the Rivertown review process and the report. This is your opportunity to provide some feedback to us. It's very important for us to understand how this has been beneficial to your community. Anything you'd like to add to that, Andrea?
Just that I know it was really hard to maybe read some of those slides, and we're packing a lot of information on the slides, but all of those are contained in the summary report. So you will be getting that. We're just trying to give you a snapshot of what's in there. And this particular question, we really want to know about how our coming into your community and working with you was beneficial. Not so much about what you've done with it since, because we are going to talk about that a little bit later on, but what did you find helpful and useful about this process? And I have a hard time seeing if anybody has their hands up, so just jump in if you can.
I'll start. I'm in New Richmond. This is Mary Allen. First of all, we thought the process was very worthwhile, but what many of us thought useful was that we were able to engage a significant number of people from the community, the business association, and local government, to come together, form ideas, hear thoughts, and be a part of this. And it certainly energized a lot of people. Bob Lees is in this call as well. Bob, do you want to add anything? Are you on mute? Larry, you're here too. I don't know. You both may be on mute.
I'm on.
Do you want to add anything to?
Yeah. I think it was extremely useful in letting us know that we're not alone, you know, as a small river village. You know, in the past, I think there was a feeling that FEMA and others were kind of out to do us in, you know, from the standpoint of flood insurance rates and everything else that some you know, communities have to contend with. But it was just great to know that there was an Ohio River Way, and that the Park Service had also, you know, come in to play a significant role in its formation. But I think, as Mary said, it energized the community, and since then, and I think you'll be hearing from one of our council people here in just a little bit about all that we've accomplished since, but it really gave us a energy to create a roadmap to a bright future where river recreation and celebrating the river is a big part of our economic future.
Great. Yes, thank you. So it was worthwhile and energizing. Anybody else? Tracy.
For me, and I'm with the city of Portsmouth, I think the visitor assessment was probably the most beneficial because, you know, for locals, we know where to look and we know where to find information. And through the visitor assessment, we found out that, you know, people coming from outside the area, it wasn't really like readily available to them. So I think that's probably one of the most important things that for me that I realized from the Rivertown review. And I think that was one of the first things we were trying to concentrate on fixing.
Right. Would you say that was like the visit that we did, or that some people did, or the desktop review, or the look at what your resources were from master plans or something?
I think the desktop review.
Looking at your digital footprint and what you're conveying out to other people who are looking there.
Right. Yeah, because our information, I mean, we actually really have a lot of stuff going on event-wise, but it wasn't all on one site. So.
Yes, and I've heard that you have greatly improved your website since then.
We tried.
Good. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Talk about how useful and helpful the Rivertown review process was.
I would just follow up.
I'll go.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we'll go with Sean Dunn, and then we'll go with Richard Searcy, please.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over anybody. I just wanted to follow up on.
Oh, you muted yourself, Sean. You have to unmute yourself, Sean. Okay, we'll come.
Oh, is that better?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm driving. Well, I would just say that, you know, having a one-stop shop for more people to see all the different things to do in Portsmouth. But I think a larger aspect of it is changing the meaning of the river for locals, that getting people together to talk about what the river can provide and to appreciate the river. And to no longer look at the river as something that's, you know, a depository for like industrial activities and so forth, and instead something to appreciate for recreation and other activities.
Great. So it's sort of that fresh eyes. We had some people coming in saying, look at this great resource and the great outdoor recreation resources that you have. Thank you, Sean. Okay, Richard.
Briefly, for our small town that's had its share of issues lately, it's just been a nice little shot in the arm that other people came into town and saw the benefits and saw the beauty of our town that sometimes we overlook ourselves. And I think for me personally, the fact that I got connected with Sean and some of the other mayors along the trail to get ideas about how we further develop this. It's just a source of information that I don't think we could get anyplace else. So we appreciate the opportunity to be involved.
Great. And you are the mayor of which town?
I am currently on the city council of West Point, and I'm running for mayor.
Okay. We let you do your campaign pitch there. West Point, right. Okay. Anybody else? We have a little bit of time. I actually got us back on track.
So Andrea, I would just like to add that my wife and I moved to the river town of New Richmond 7 years ago. And quite often I encountered people that didn't even know where New Richmond was, yet it's a very short drive from downtown Cincinnati to New Richmond. And I can say with the Rivertown Review and the attention that you folks have gotten, all of the Rivertown villages and cities has really helped increase our tourism. And I can only see this tourism moving onward and upward as the Ohio Riverway continues to progress. So I want to thank everyone on your team that has helped put all this together. It's really been great.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear that this was very useful. Okay, I think that's about it for right now. I don't see any hands up. Okay.
Andrew, if I could just say that Kendall Miller just put in a nice note in the chat from Rising Sun, which is rocking it. That having folks from the outside come in, it struck her that it's more convincing to get people more engaged in change than folks in the community. So
yes,
hats off to Rising Sun. They, by the way, have the best big permanent signage to identify themselves to folks going downstream on the river, as you can see going past their beautiful riverfront. It's amazing.
Yes, I'm glad you caught that from Kendall as well. And, you know, we enjoy coming into towns and being those fresh eyes. And Russ says it all the time, you know, fresh eyes on your community, but that's what it takes, because you get too used to what you are living in day to day. And we also don't know all the background, bad or good. So we can come into it with a fresh set of eyes and really look at it from our perspective of outdoor recreation, connecting communities, and the value that your river town has. Okay, so now back to Russ.
Thank you, Andrea, and really thank you everyone for all this great input. This really helps us verify that we're on the right track here. So next, I would like to introduce a new member of our team, John Olivier. He is a writer, and he has decades of experience in parks and recreation, and he's helped lessen the burden for Andrea and I in the writing of these last 3 reports and the production of this summer report. So I'd like to introduce you to the new old guy, John.
You're on mute, John.
Thanks, Russ. And I've enjoyed the opportunity to lessen the burden just a little bit. And as Russ said, I wasn't involved in all of the reports, came on about 6 or 7 or 8 months ago. And I'm not even sure whether at the very beginning a summary report was in the plans. But I can certainly say from my time and experience with the project, going through it, what we found through all the site visits and doing the SWOT analysis and brainstorming was that there were so many common challenges and opportunities and goals that, again, were common to virtually every single river town. And that really got us starting to think that if you combine the commonality of all those should lead to partnerships and some shared solutions And somebody, and I forget his first name, Mr. Lees just said something that was really, really appropriate. He said that their community found out that they were not alone. And partnering with folks will make you not alone. And that's one of the goals of the summary. And I think that was one of the big things that led to the development of the summary and also to the value of it as well. And since we've got everybody here, I wanted to touch on, I guess, the most common of the common challenges, opportunities, and goals that we found. And again, as Andrea said, these are all in the summary report, and actually they're all in your individual reports as well. So I'm going to go through them briefly, but the hope is that as we discuss these today, they may strike a chord with somebody listening from another community, and hopefully that'll kind of spur some action too. But anyway, and I'm only going to do 3 or 4 of the most common of each category. Going to the challenges, many times the perception of the Ohio River as being polluted and unsafe came up. That was a very common one. Funding, obviously, is probably common with just about any kind of project you get involved in. The need for better marketing. A general lack of transient docking and the need to provide more for all these people that are going to start coming when all the things are implemented in your review. And also, this was something that really struck me on a site visit, but one of the challenges brought up a lot was the barrier that's caused by flood control structures, levees, and flood walls. And that really, really hit home with me on one of my visits. It's easy to sit somewhere else and say to a community, well, why aren't you promoting the river? Well, we can't see it and it's tough to access it. So I think it was very, very important for us to get a much, much better appreciation for that. That's certainly a challenge, but I know some of the communities are finding ways to address that. Now, on the opposite end, there's opportunities too. One that came up, boy, in just about every town was the opportunity to start marketing the Underground Railroad. What a great resource and a powerful story in our history. And another one you can tell just by looking at a very simple Google map is there are so many outdoor recreation opportunities surrounding every one of your communities. The nearby state and national parks and forests, obviously the Ohio River and its tributaries. In fact, we got to calling it, people could start developing the green blob map, because if you look at any of your communities and kind of back out a little bit on Google Maps, you're going to see all these green blobs around it, showing national and state forests and parks and just wonderful opportunities all around you. So that's an opportunity. All of the numerous historical districts, it seems like every town has one. And I think Madison has the largest contiguous one in the country. So that's a really neat thing to combine with the outdoor recreation opportunities you have. And also just another real general opportunity is the general uptick and increase in participation in all forms of outdoor recreation. A little bit spurred, obviously, by the negative, the COVID situation, but I think that was still growing as we were going anyway. The other thing that was that we looked at through the community workshops was trying to help people develop and prioritize their goals, and primarily related to outdoor recreation and increasing tourism. And here again, there were so many that were found to be common to every single river town. And some of these included adding canoe and kayak launches, adding primitive campsites for, people like me who are cyclists who are riding through town and just want to find a place to throw a tent up. Marketing was mentioned again as actually another goal. and working in more in partnership. Again, that's getting to the we're not alone feeling. And a very general comment that came up a lot was just to be more bike and pedestrian friendly. And that can be done with real simple things, and it can also be done with, developing and improving a bike and pedestrian plan. So anyway, those were some of the the most common of the common challenges and opportunities and goals. And the other really benefit of all these common things and really added to the value of the summary was we were able to come up with a lot of common to all recommendations. And with every single recommendation we made, we added relevant resources too. So that just, again, it really, it shows the value of the summary, and it made it a heck of a lot easier too, because we had so many common things that we had common recommendations and resources for. And just like the challenges and the opportunities and the goals, I'll just touch briefly on some of those. And I think, as Russ talked about a little bit earlier, one of the things we wanted to do was really provide a lot of immediate action items, the quick wins and some of the easier things. And I put quotes around easy because nothing's really easy, but some of the more easy ones, let's put it that way. And I'll touch on a few of those here. One is a real easy one, I think, and that's just share your review with everybody that you can, elected officials and residents, local businesses and leaders, and show them what became of it, how you're using it, and also what you did, because I think somebody said it was, and we know it was hard work on your part. So kind of toot your own horn when you get out there doing that. Really use review the comprehensive list of resources. There may be stuff in there that'll spur an idea in your mind, but there's tons of funding resources and programming resources. So that's a really good thing, and that's easy. That's an easy thing to do. Just go ahead and review those. One of the ones, again, that was one of the first common challenges that we noticed. Again, it's going back to the perception of the Ohio River as being polluted and unsafe. And our recommendation, and this is relatively easy, Orsenco has some wonderful information out there on water quality and all kinds of good safety information. And the Ohio River Way also has some great information on boating safety guidelines. And that's really just probably a couple of clicks away from just making that information available to the public, and start lessening that perception of the Ohio as being polluted and unsafe. There's certainly challenges out there, but I'm pretty sure it's safe, and the numbers show it. I'll go back to the Underground Railroad too. There's just start really marketing that, and not just locally. That's just such a powerful story in our nation's history, and that could be a nationwide draw for tourists. Boy, you tie all the communities. It's just an amazing story, particularly in these times. It's so valuable, and I think that's going to be a huge market for you. And also, Russ has mentioned a couple of times the concept of trail towns, and several states have programs in place where you can get designated as trail towns, and there are requirements for that. But one of the immediate action items that we're suggesting, and you can find resources on this in the resources in the appendix, just explore some of the stories of trail towns. And a lot of those stories will tell you some of the real simple things that they did, and you might be able to implement a lot of those things right away. And they're also, they're real encouraging type stories, and you can really get a handle too on the economic benefits of having tons and tons of cyclists, hikers, and paddlers coming through your town. I actually live up in northeastern Ohio. Andrea is kind of my neighbor. But we have our national park, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and Andrea will agree, there was this little tiny sleepy town of Peninsula, Ohio, now has not only a water trail going through it, it's right on the Cuyahoga, but it's got the Ohio and Erie Canalway. It's an 80-mile long trail. And you talk about a financial impact on a town, it's incredible. So there are a lot of benefits to looking at least starting to explore becoming a trail town. All of those are great immediate action items, but there's one that really, really stands out, and that is, and Tracy kind of touched on this a little bit, because I remember this being discussed in their Rivertown review, the community workshop, is promoting the outdoor recreation resources that you already have. All the communities are doing a great job on the traditional resources, you know, where to eat and where to sleep and where to shop. But during a lot of our desktop reviews, our reviewers found it very difficult at times to find out things about what you have to offer in outdoor recreation. And one of the reasons for that, some of the navigational tabs were just vaguely titled. So really the advice and the recommendation is just use really clear and specific tabs like hiking and cycling and trails and things like that. Just be as specific as you can. And I'm looking at the screen, and that's really a good example of what you need to do. Instead of, I mean, that website could have just had something like enjoy. Well, that doesn't tell me anything, but those tabs right there tell me a lot, and it makes it easy. And if you can do that, and then you combine that with the really good marketing you're already doing with where to eat and where to shop and where to sleep, man, you got a total visitor experience there that's just waiting to be discovered. So again, that was the biggest and most significant immediate action item that we had. Now, moving up the time frame a little bit, a lot of the short-term initiatives we saw that are very common, and our recommendations, and these are items that, you know, may take 1 to 3 years or so, but encourage somebody to open up a canoe, kayak, bike rental business in your town. You're going to have lots of people coming through that may be driving through that want to do this kind of activity. And I know some of these are starting to pop up. We're already seeing that. And definitely add primitive campsites. And those might be able to be added to existing campgrounds. They're, you know, they're not quite as hard to do as a full hookup RV site. And do some of the simple things as far as making things bike friendly. As simple as adding bike racks and a pump repair stations, and also lockable storage would be great too. And just whatever signage you have, either add to it, improve it, make it easy to find out where you are and where you need to go. Again, I think I use the phrase "make it easy" a lot of times through here, and signage can certainly do that. And then the other end of the spectrum are the longer term items. Again, a lot of these, all of these were common. Really look to develop water trails. And a lot of times that's a long-term project, but good paddling access is going to bring paddlers to your community. And any kind of connection is a big word. Any kind of regional or national trail you have in your area, somehow or other figure out how to connect to it. And boy, you talk about bringing folks into your town, because hikers and cyclists and paddlists, they're always looking for connections, and they're always going to have they're always going to need a place to stay and eat and do that kind of stuff. Another thing that again hit me when I was doing a site visit was the barrier again, and the efforts made to beautify those barriers. The murals are incredible, just absolutely stunning. that, if we can take that and do it on the riverside as well, and just become more welcoming to the folks arriving by the river. Rising Sun is an amazing example of that. I mean, what a great logo sign. And there's also some other good examples of that. I think Newport and Parkersburg, West Virginia, I think have some projects going on like that. And basically you could develop a public art program, and maybe it's beautifying the riverside of those walls. And the last really long-term one is, reach out and try to reach out and attract underserved markets. All groups of people outdoor recreate in the outdoors, and the markets out there are probably bigger than you're thinking. And again, we have some good resources for you to use. And the way I'm going to end is I'm going to go back to the beginning, and the real purpose and the beauty of the summary report was it showed so many things that were common, and hopefully those will lead to partnerships. And it would be really cool if something like that happened today during the rendezvous. So anyway, again, I really, really enjoyed this, and there's a lot of stuff ready out there to happen.
Thank you, John. Yes, it was really good to see so many ideas, both immediate action items. That was something that we kept talking about in every review. These are simple things. These are low-hanging fruit that you can do to make an immediate difference. And then the long and short-term initiatives. John did a really good job of simplifying or summarizing some of those. There's a lot more. They're in the summary. We just put a few up here and had him share some of those so that you would get an idea. And they may look very familiar to you if you went through the Rivertown review process, but if you're someone new, maybe some of this is ringing true for your town as well, and you can see the opportunities. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what you do. What have you done? What can you do with your reports, with your review? How can you activate it? I like that word lately because it denotes giving energy to, or giving life to, or experience of using something. And so we're going to hear from some folks who can share with us, any of you who have gone through the Rivertown review process. We're really curious to know what you've done with the information since your review. Some of you did this like 2 years ago, because we've been at this a while. Hopefully you didn't just put your report on the shelf and leave it there for the next person to say, what was this all about? Hopefully you've met with some elected officials or your community champions, and they also see the value in the work that was done with your community. What are some successes that you've seen since and because of the Rivertown review? What kind of partnerships have been happening? And we will talk a little bit more about connecting to communities along the way. And what short and long-term plans have you made? What are some of those immediate action items that you also bought into because you said, wow, that's pretty easy? You can put things in the chat, but I'm also going to call on some people, and I see that Ryan Woodruff has his hand up, so we're going right to him.
Thank you. Yeah, I just kind of want to echo some of the stuff that Bob Lees had said earlier about, understanding that we're not alone. And I think that was really the biggest part for us. Sometimes we felt pretty isolated. I'm
going to interrupt just 1 second. Can you tell me
which
town you're with?
Oh, yeah, sorry, New Richmond, Ohio.
Thank you.
Yes. When our group got together, our local group, to be honest, I think we kind of thought we didn't do a whole lot coming out of October until we actually started putting our heads together and putting a list down. And we did have some some quick success items, and then we also have some more longer term planning things. Just a few things I'll highlight here. For us local, we've got a Liberty Landing project, and that's a well, right now we've received at least $300,000 in grant funding to start doing some planning and development to completely rehab our entire riverfront and riverscape. A lot of the suggestions that were included in the review, such as the transient docking and things like that, are going to be included in this project. So we're hopeful to continue getting some more funding on that for the future. We also have the US 52 CMAC project. Part of that's going to create some roundabouts for us, but in addition to that, we're going to actually create a secondary bicycle trail pathway, as well as pedestrian thoroughfare through there and some extra green space. So that's it's another exciting, again, longer term project, but some things that we have in the works right now. Some of the actual stuff that's really kind of kicked off that I see is that we've really engaged our community a lot more. We've got a lot more partnerships with our local business groups, as well as Renaissance New Richmond, nonprofits, and Historic New Richmond. Everybody's kind of coming together to come under this one umbrella to move forward. Some of the things that they've done to assist the town with tourism and quite honestly, just being relevant for visitors. We've opened a military museum that honors the local history of our military here. The Historic New Richmond also purchased the Second Baptist Church, which is very significant for our local Underground Railroad sites. We've picked up several new small businesses. I did see another community talking about Chris Shack with Shack's Yaks. We are very proud to have him as a business here in our community, and we wish him the best success in growing in multiple communities. So if you're talking with Chris, he's a wonderful business owner, and he will do very good things for your kayak and water business. We've also attracted and set up 2 new RV parks, and we have 7 new Airbnbs to assist with that transient travel. Our very own Councilwoman Mary Allen, who's on this call, she was appointed to the ORW Board of Directors, and she also serves on the steering committee. And I can't say this enough, Mary is very, very good at coming back to not just council meetings, but all the local meetings that she does attend, and shares all the information of the ORW and really keeps people informed and engaged on this process. I know her and Mayor Ewing also participated in the Mayor's Summit that took place back in May. Something else that our local government did, we passed a resolution to be a member of the ORW for the next 5 years, and we registered and paid our first year's membership. And that was very important for us. We saw the benefit of this, this action going forward, and we wanted to make an official stand and say, hey, we're definitely in for the long haul. Let's see, we also had the River Challenge. Took place at the community ceremonies that we hosted back on Friday, June 3rd, which was an excellent way for the community to see what it is that the ORW is all about. And we received a lot of positive feedback out of that. I know our businesses that are on our front street right along the river, they are really excited to know that there's other partners out there that are going to help drive people to them. I know Renaissance New Richmond has been working at nauseum getting our dog park constructed. They've got grant writers that have been able to obtain funding for that, and I believe Bob Lee could speak to it. I think they've been able to be fully funded on that with just community donations. So the biggest part, like I said, coming out of this is those relationships and the stuff that we've been able to put together with our community partners. A couple other little things in working with the community partners, we've been able to move some of our local farmers markets. We do a Wednesday night concert series down in one of our local parks right on the river. And this is an effort to just kind of bring all of the different things that used to be spread out around the town into one localized area that's right there in the heart of our historic business district, as well as right along the Ohio River. Just makes it easier if you're traveling to town that you can just go to one place to be able to hop onto our little local trails to go visit everything that we've got. I think that's it. I appreciate the time on it. We've got some stuff that we've definitely have in the pipeline coming down the road. I know Mary would be able to speak to that. And if there's anything I left out, she will definitely be able to fill in the gaps on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. That's a lot. you know, I put out the call the other day, and Mary quickly sent me 2 whole pages of things that they've done. And they were one of the more recent Rivertown reviews. And I was just really surprised and pleased. And I said that she is a dream Rivertown review town. So thank you very much, Mary, and all of the other people in New Richmond for all the work that you're doing in using the Rivertown reviews. Is there anybody else? I know that's a lot to try and beat, but I'm sure some of you have successes.
Andrea, I'll speak on behalf of Dearborn County and our 2 river cities of Lawrenceburg and Aurora. The Ohio Riverway signage was a real nice touch during the relaunch of the ORW organization this year. So both cities now have that proudly on display. And signage was, of course, a recommendation in our Rivertown review reports. Lawrenceburg is currently in the planning stages, design and permitting for a significant makeover of the wet side of their river levee, which will foster the movement of visitors from the river to the downtown business district. It's about a $14 million investment by the city that they'll be moving on or are already moving on in a lot of ways. The city of Aurora, they captured earlier this year using the Rivertown Review Report as kind of some supporting documentation, an Indiana Next Level Trails grant of about $700,000 to link the Dearborn Trail to the city park on the other side of US Highway 50. The Dearborn Trail being a trail that goes along and kind of parallels the river between Lawrenceburg and Aurora. And I'm glad to say that the Rivertown Review Reports have been used again as supporting documentation for not only the Next Level Trails grant for Aurora, but also Lawrenceburg's riverfront development as well. And we've also had our Dearborn County Convention Visitor Tourism Bureau, which was a participant in our Rivertown Review initiative for both of those cities. They participated in that, and because of that, they've agreed to fully fund 3 years of membership for all 3 of our river cities, Aurora, Lawrenceburg, and Greendale here in Dearborn County.
Right. Very good. Yeah, those are some impressive numbers and really significant projects that you've got going on there. And it's good to know that the Rivertown Review at least helped in some way to activate those projects going. Tracy.
So I already said that, we tried to reorganize our city website to offer more of the events and consolidate everything so people could know what's going on. But since then, the county commissioners have offered $50,000 to have a marketing study done and a new county website. So that's exciting and hopes to promote tourism. Excuse me. And since then, we've also secured grants, both the city of Portsmouth and the county commissioners for paddling facilities along the Scioto River. So I think that is most of what's happening, and we're still working on riverfront improvements. We also do have a wayfinding plan in place. I'm hashing out some prices with a company right now, so hopefully we can get those installed before the end of the year.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Good things happening there in Portsmouth. Anybody else? We have a few minutes.
Andrea, Janet Hunt has had some comments from Augusta in the chat. Maybe she'd like to share verbally some of what she said there. Janet's one of our amazing tourism directors. Go ahead, Janet.
Community champion, yes.
But you have to put yourself off of mute.
There we go. I'm sorry. I am so glad that Augusta was a part of the river review. I have learned to contact other small areas or river towns like Maysville and Vanceburg to make contacts when we have events. We help each other to promote. It kind of made me think out of the box. So we're just now redid our area called Sunset Point. Brewster, I don't know if you remember that area or not, but we trimmed the trees. We ordered 2 new picnic tables. We've got a concrete slab down there now. We've got benches, so it looks really nice. Hopefully now when spring gets here next year, we can add some more flowers and landscaping to that. We do have a brand new RV campground now that is owned by an individual that has water and electric hookup. And I think there's 8 or 10 hookups down there. And the owner also offers tent camping as well. We've had a lot of new changes in Augusta this year with new owners, with restaurants. We are now have 12 Airbnbs, and there's another one coming up pretty soon. So, but in the meantime, just like, I can't remember who was talking about this, but it's like you got places to stay, you got food to eat, but what else do we have to offer? So you got to add that as well. You know, do you have a festival? You know, do you want to go to the Rosemary Clooney Museum? Do you want to go to the Augusta Distillery that just started up this summer? You know, do you want to do a hard hat tour with them? So, you know, it's a lot of thinking out of the box when you have all these changes at one time. You want to keep your people here as long as you can. So
that's great, Janet. I like some of those really easy to implement ideas that make a difference. And then also thinking outside of the box, you know, that it doesn't have to be business as usual for what you've always done. Even the little changes can make a big difference. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to see your smiling face again back on Zoom.
Can't wait till we get in person.
Okay, anybody else? How about Kendall Miller from Rising Sun? Anything exciting happening in Kendall Miller? I mean, in Rising Sun?
Kendall just got off of running and managing the largest largest catfish tournament in America last weekend in Rising Sun. Unbelievable. I had a chance to drive through there. I don't know if she's on the call right now still, but
there were 172 entries in that tournament.
Unbelievable.
She's probably busy gutting fish.
Well, she also has the Navy Bean Festival starting tomorrow. So I can't believe she's on the call. It's amazing. They're bringing that back.
What a culinary combination that is.
Fish and beans.
I love it. So maybe Andrew, we could go to Maysville, which is a wonderful community. And I see that Caroline and Norbert are on the call, and maybe somebody else, but maybe they'd like to share what they're up to.
Well, you know, to be honest, as you said, we have a new tourism director, and our former one, Lacey, was really the feet on the ground and hands on the oars as far as this group went. So I'm sure Caitlin will watch this and take the ball and roll with it. Roll up the river, down the river, what have you. So we're just kind of in here to keep her and take notes, and we'll all work together well.
All right. Yeah, that's exciting. She's coming on board with some things that could be implemented quite quickly and have some immediate success.
Right. And we have a big Simon Kenton 2-day festival here this weekend. So it's all hands on deck there.
Okay. Navy Bean, was that the other one? Yeah, so leveraging those special events and connecting communities, it's really very important. You heard us saying that connecting communities piece a lot. You know, some of what I heard just from the few people who shared is that there are big and small projects, and they're both valuable. Many of them are leading to true economic development. Sometimes that's really hard to quantify, or it's a metric that is difficult to define. But from all the things that you just heard, those are all improving economic development in your small communities. And we have tried to frame the Rivertown reviews looking at sustainable tourism coming out of COVID. Our guest speaker is going to talk a little bit more about that. But the other things that I heard were new ideas and thinking out of the box, engaging your community, multi-recreational. We find that if someone likes to ride a bike, they probably like to paddle or hike. And so tuning into the different kinds of recreation that are out there. And also I heard resounding community champion, you know, having that person who tuned in to this idea of a Rivertown review, who gathered their elected officials together, who formed a meeting to say, hey, how can we change that riverfront park? So those community champions are really important and valuable, and I encourage you to continue to look for them within your community. So as I was saying, thank you all for your input on that. And I know that there were some things from in the chat as well. And we appreciate that. I see Elizabeth has put quite a bit in there. And we will be capturing that. So our next speaker is Donald Ledbetter, and he is a one-man show tourism program manager for the National Park Service. It seems to me that the National Park Service is a pretty big tourism deal and really deserves more than one person. But Donnie does a really good job of managing that and talking about all the ways that tourism benefits small communities. And he has some direct ties to this as well. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see Donnie. Where is he? Ah, here he is.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. I'm glad you stopped sharing. I don't love that photo. I'm rather squinty in it, so.
Let me see if I can pin you here.
Okay.
There we go. And then I'll share.
Okay. So I should start talking now?
Yes, you're larger than life, I think.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Him?
I think I'm coming through for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Andrea. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah. My name is Donnie Ledbetter. I'm the tourism program manager for the National Park Service, and I work in the main interior building, the beautiful main interior here in Washington, D.C. And when Andrea asked me and Russ if I could stop by this afternoon to just give a few words of encouragement and talk about how we think about tourism strategically in the agency and the work we do around this topic, it was an easy yes for me to do this. I'm very much a riverfront kind of guy. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, along another beautiful, amazing riverfront where I certainly spent time. I live in Alexandria, Virginia, and spend an awful lot of time kayaking on the Potomac. It's one of my favorite recreation activities, is to get out onto the Potomac practically every weekend as much as I can. I was out there on Christmas. This past Christmas was unseasonably warm, so I was on the river for Christmas. But more relevant to where you all work and your landscape, I do have a personal connection I was thinking about in preparation for stopping by, which is that my mother grew up in Fort Thomas, Kentucky. just across, the river from Cincinnati. And so when I was growing up in Chicago and then in Memphis, we spent many visits, back to Cincinnati to see my grandparents in Fort Thomas rather. And I was thinking about those visits and, the way my mom described her childhood growing up, in that landscape and in that region. And I didn't recall the river ever really being a prominent part of our visits back to Fort Thomas, or my mom talking much about it as a presence in her childhood. I don't think it was a place that they spent a lot of time, maybe recreating or spending time, down on the river. Now, my family isn't exactly, they weren't the biggest kind of outdoorsy, recreation, type people. So maybe that's a factor too. But, I thought, I was thinking about how in the decades past, perhaps that kind of, access to the river wasn't as easy. And I think that was the case all around the country, but particularly in the Midwest, when those natural features were given over to kind of other industrial uses, right? You all know this better than anyone. I think talking to the choir, but those industrial uses, the transportation role and how important transportation is on the Ohio. To this day, when you zoom in on Google Maps, you see so many barges, tied up and in transit along the river. Those other uses over those decades, I think kept perhaps, local residents from accessing some of that recreation and some of those other opportunities that are being uncovered today. And I was thinking about that in relation to my own family history and the fact that I hadn't heard much of reference to my mother, spending time on or next to the river in her childhood. And so that's what's so exciting about your project. That is what is the tremendous opportunity that you're now kind of unraveling and unpacking and refreshing, giving new access to these amazing assets and resources that are unique. What's unique about our communities? Well, the culture and the people and the history and the heritage, for sure. That's a key layer. But the geographic features, those assets that are unique that we can leverage and take advantage of and enjoy ourselves as residents, and then enjoy also as visitors and tourists. And so you're part of this movement that has been taking root all across the country, of kind of pivoting and unpacking and peeling away and improving that access that I enjoy on the Potomac as the Potomac's gotten cleaner over the years, and that you all are on the leading edge of, the tip of the spear, and doing the same along the Ohio River Way. And so I think it's so exciting, to see your project in that context. I also wanted to mention my first involvement with the National Park Service over a decade ago was on the C&O Canal and an RTCA project around trail towns along the C&O Canal, a very similar project. How can we as communities kind of cohere around some branding, cohere around some best practices and some network building? And what I saw in that project, I couldn't believe when I tuned in, 15 minutes ago to hear Mike and Ryan and Tracy giving their updates. It was exactly some of the experiences I saw 10, 12 years ago of the network building, the sharing of information, the raising awareness, the modest infrastructure improvements and investments that are the first steps down this path that yield such tremendous fruit and gain momentum. You're amazed at how much momentum, what seemed like small steps, what seemed like small steps, what they then engender, and then can then lead to, bigger and bigger things. And I really think that's one of the main values of RTCA as one of the programs at the agency I'm so proud that we have, which is bringing the acumen and some of the skill sets that are endemic here at the Park Service into communities, and maybe just sometimes it's that low-hanging fruit that just needed someone to kind of bring a case study and bring some best practices and bring some examples and bring some assessments like the kind that have been rolled out in the report today, that you all are taking a look at. So there's just a lot of momentum. There's a lot of supportive context, I think, to be proud of. I think in the context, as Andrea mentioned, post-COVID, you're poised to take advantage, of this tremendous pivot towards recreation, towards community that we're experiencing across the country. I was thinking about that as well. And in preparation for these comments, we saw during COVID that tremendous pivot towards recreation, but I think it's going to have a really long tail. We're experiencing so much pressure in the 21st century from social media, from our digital engagement, from the unrelenting news of the day, that is constantly bombarding all of us across this country. And it's interesting, even as social media usage and the time online skyrockets ever upward, we're also seeing a big pivot towards health and wellness and well-being and self-care. You see that in numerous industries and in numerous, kind of spaces. The popularity of, I think it's Talkspace, these online, virtual therapy businesses that are popping up. And I think we're going to see a long tail of that as well in the recreation, in the outdoor sector. That happened in the 1920s, post World War I. There was the trauma of a world war. You saw a real flowering and kind of the parks movement, during that era. So I think we're experiencing a little bit of that. And these projects you all are investing in and being the leaders of, because it takes dedicated leadership. I think you're riding some tailwinds, that will be real, that will be very that will provide a good advantage for the work, that you all are doing and leading. A note about tourism, because it is kind of my bailiwick and the area I work in. I help the agency think about how we collaborate with travel and tourism networks, with the travel and tourism industry, how we take advantage and think about different trends and developments in the travel and tourism sector. Again, just to pivot it back to recreation, I think that recreation traveler, recreation tourist niche is a wonderful hook to be aware and taking advantage of, because they can be so impactful. They're the kind that modest investments in infrastructure, the kinds of things I just heard you talking a little bit about, the modest investments in access, in just giving more routes, the improvement of routes and of trails and of signage and wayfinding and those kinds of things, relatively modest, not saying they're easy, it takes, you got to find the resources, but still some modest investments that really hook into that traveler niche that I think a lot of communities along these wonderful assets have found to be a great place to start, and it starts a little bit of that momentum that can then lead, who knows where, and as you expand the visitor services, and like Janet just mentioned, the expansion of things to do, you get kind of that momentum going, and there's a really great synergy there. A final macro point, again, probably preaching to the choir, it's not stuff you haven't thought of, but as I was thinking about your project, just an observation, I like to think long-term as well. And I think tourism development, tourism planning, and destination management needs to have a long-term horizon. I think you want to be thinking about the externalities 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, what might this be leading to? And, two thoughts, there's both a word of caution and a word of optimism. I do think tourism works best, and I've seen this in community after community, when it's kind of part of the larger economic pie. There are case studies of communities turning too much towards tourism, thinking it'll be kind of a cure-all, like, okay, we're going to completely pivot to this other thing. And the truth is that sometimes tourism can also be, in a word, kind of extractive on a community. It can kind of have some negative impacts and not always leave behind, the greatest economic impact that you want. I think tourism works best when it's kind of couched into that larger, kind of economic development, strategic thinking and planning. It's a valuable piece. I mean, I'm a proponent. It's a valuable piece for sure. But contextually, just something to think about, because I think the larger argument to make, or maybe just something to think about, is how these investments you're making contribute to quality of life. Right? You're really investing in the livability of the community. And it may be that over the last 20, 30 years, we've seen a lot of population growth in the United States, in the South, in the Southwest. I'm no prognosticator, but some of that might even reverse as climate change and drought make some of those geographies less livable. We might even see 20 years from now some of those trends reversing in the opposite direction, to the north, to the northeast. And I think communities like yours that are investing now in livability and quality of life, in an embracing of those assets that you have, that patrimony, that heritage that is unique to you alone, that could really pay dividends in the long run as we see living patterns change, and who knows how long work from home patterns will stay, and all that kind of good stuff. So maybe that's a little highfalutin, but I think it's worth thinking about, the horizon on down the road. And I think you're on a great path to be perhaps taking advantage of some of those potential future trends. So probably a lot of that was stuff you're thinking about already. Maybe I'm just reinforcing some things that are floating around in your minds. But I was so inspired by the project. I looked through the report, wonderful findings, and I think it's some really useful, suggestions and findings that are hopefully inspiring you for your next steps. And I just wish you all the best of luck, you know, in continuing the momentum and the great work you've obviously put in so far.
Thank you, Donnie. That was amazing. You covered climate change, mental health, economic development, and part of the bigger pie, long-term horizon, not being alone, partnerships, like you covered it all, right? And we really appreciate that. And you can say that you're preaching to a choir, but I've also found that sometimes a prophet's not known in their own land, and these people have been saying this to their communities, but maybe it's good to hear it from somebody else. I think that that's part of our fresh eyes that we bring to the table too, is, oh, here's somebody else who's been saying everything that they've been saying for the last 5 years, but all of a sudden, because it's the National Park Service, it's you know, important or significant, whatever. Let the arrowhead take the credit, as long as your projects get done. So thank you very much for the time and the great words of encouragement, and we appreciate your presentation. So
well, thanks for having me, and again, just best luck to everybody, and I look forward to my next visit to the Ohio Riverway.
Thank you.
All right.
And I'm totally sorry that I may have messed that up with sharing my screen. I've got too many things open here. So we'll go back to this. Are you seeing it? Are you seeing Dawn again?
Yes, we're good.
Yes, we're good.
Good. All right. So so we've heard a lot about connecting communities, right? We say it all the time. It's part of the tagline of the Rivertown Reviews and Ohio Riverway, and you know, connecting communities and promoting outdoor recreation. And we all often said when we were in your community, think outside of your boundaries, because so many times people get insulated and they don't look outside their boundaries. And there could be real good opportunities that you miss, you know, even if it's putting in a trail and another town is thinking about putting in a trail. And if you're not on the same page, you might not be able to connect. Think upstream, because people who are upstream are going to be flowing downstream. And think downstream, because if they've been at your community, they might be going down there as well. So working together. We did, for the summary, have some questions in there. John reached out to the communities, and there's some voices from your fellow river towns on there. Questions like, what's the single most significant issue facing your community? Or what one question would you ask of the other river towns? And so you can read about those in the summary. The other thing that I'd like to ask, and I'm going to put it in the chat so that we can continue on with our presentation. Multiple priorities here. To everyone. Think about what are some ways that you can better connect with other Ohio River communities? You know, is it events? Is it connecting trails? Is it shared marketing? I'm interested to hear what are some ways that you think that you can better connect. So perhaps go ahead and populate that while we move on. But I think that probably right now the most valuable way that you can connect with other communities is by working with our project partners at the Ohio Riverway. We, as the National Park Service, in working on this project, we've been witness to, and we've been celebrating their moving from the Ohio River Recreation Trail with the humble little beginnings of 3 retired guys doing a bunch of work, and to a major major regional organization that is advancing multiple layers of the Ohio Riverway. And so here to talk a little bit more about that is the project director of the Ohio Riverway, Francis Minone.
Okay, thanks everybody. And mine, Andrea, you can move quickly to the next slide, but the Ohio Riverway organization as a whole also learned extensively from the Rivertown Review project. And so it's been great to have the in-depth analysis that you all have done for all the communities, because some things seemed apparent to us, but there are lots of things that we learned that were less apparent. And so identifying new synergies around the river that we ourselves didn't even think of was an amazing experience for the regional organization, which is the Ohio Riverway. The effort helped prompt the recent organizational changes that we've made, as you alluded to, between becoming the Ohio River Recreation Trail to rebranding ourselves as the Ohio Riverway. So much so that we've taken that to heart so much that our tagline had been, and is at the moment, promoting recreation and connecting communities. But through this process and through what we've learned through our National Park Service engagement, would very much consider adding some language to our tagline that would say promoting recreation and community and connecting communities and celebrating the Ohio River way of life, which is much richer and deeper than we even recognized ourselves before we got started on this. So let's move to the next one, Andrea. So I had said in the chat, one way to answer Andrea's question, I have a solution for you. Please join the Ohio Riverway Coalition. I see the Rivertown Review communities as being the founding members of the Ohio Riverway Coalition. So we've asked a number of times, and we have a challenge out to everyone to go ahead and become members. Fees are nominal for each organization to join, or each community to join. And we've had a number of communities, almost everyone no one has said no yet. But we just need to take the action step of doing the process of signing up. So you can go to our website and do it there. And we would love for you to adopt an authorizing resolution that codifies that engagement with us, so it goes beyond just the humans that are involved in the organization at this moment. We want you to appoint a spokesperson, identify a representative from your community who can lead for you on behalf of the Ohio Riverway engagement. And then we have annual fees that are really low, like I mentioned before. Let's move to the next slide, Andrea, and we'll talk about one of the things that the Ohio Riverway does. We've seen this slide before, but one of the things the Ohio Riverway does is help solve this problem. This is one of the reasons why it's been easy for the communities to turn their backs on the river, is there wasn't really anybody advocating for the funding for it, for the ways in which the Ohio Riverway organization is. This is an example of a funding source that came out of the Department of Interior, and all those resources went all over the place, but did not come to the Ohio Valley. So let's move to the next one. In the last year, what we've done is we have almost $6 million of requests out that are pending for funding for the Ohio River Valley. Whenever there's an opportunity to do something in a regional way and the Ohio to secure funding, the Ohio River Way will get involved and help bring those resources to the communities. So one of those is the Senator Brown earmark. We hope to hear from by the end of the year. The Federal Lands Access Program for Adams County is still pending. That's $350,000 of planning dollars for Adams County and better access the Manchester Islands. We went through, lots of you participated in the America the Beautiful grant application through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. That was over $4 million of requested funds. So if you go back to the previous slide, and you don't have to move back, literally move back, but when you think about the reason why we haven't gotten funding for the Ohio Valley in the past, it in part has to do with, we need someone doing the asking. We need an advocacy group such as the Ohio River Way teed up to be putting our hat in the ring so that we can go after those resources. You can't just expect it to come to you without going and asking for it. Next up for us for the Ohio River Way are a couple different things that Andrea, go back one more. Yeah, the new funding opportunities that are coming our way is the RISE Ohio Appalachia funding program that's been introduced. And so a bunch of us were together yesterday in person for the first time in a while, which was great to talk about, to get more information on how that planning grant will be distributed and how we can collectively pursue it together. So stay tuned. If you are one of our 4 Ohio counties that is, if you're one of the 4 counties of Ohio that are eligible to apply for that, we would love to put together a regional application, and Wayne Gates of the Village of Ripley and I are chasing that down. And then we are encouraging, and these are the ones we know about it, but if others are doing it, please let us know. The Department of Transportation, Federal Department of Transportation has a Reconnecting Communities application. And we have South Bank Partners, who is actively applying on one side of the South Bank of the Ohio River. And then hopefully a request coming out of Dearborn County and Hamilton County to connect better across the state line, right at the confluence of the Great Miami and the Ohio River. So let's move to the next one. But someone said along the way, and I don't know who it said, Andrea, you can move. Yeah, we would love to see you guys in person. So enough of this online stuff. Our next event, in-person event, will be on November 15th at Ivy Tech Community College. We've had our eyes on trying to get to Lawrenceburg, which is centrally located here in our 275 miles for a while now, and we're going to make it happen on November 15th. And we would love to see you all there. Bring your advocates, and there'll be more information coming soon on details around that. But a day-long event to connect literally again with our Ohio River Way people and learn more about what other people are doing around the country. Followed by a happy hour. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Francis. Here's that great map of the Ohio Riverway too, with river town review towns and everything in between. So much potential, such a big project, such a big undertaking, and we really appreciate the Ohio Riverway taking that on. I wanted to back up just a minute to ask that question again about what are some ways you can better connect with other Ohio River communities. And I might be putting him on the spot, but I had asked Mike Perleberg to talk specifically about this. And maybe you already did in the earlier section. Mike.
Sorry, had to find the unmute button there. So, how can we better connect other Ohio River communities? Well, my suggestion would be to be part of the coalition, which was mentioned earlier, in holding regional meetings. That group holding regional meetings a few times a year to provide a consistent touch point. The Mayor's Summit, which was mentioned a little bit earlier too, that was very helpful for getting support for local officials and increasing their awareness. Invite your mayors, your council people to come and visit with us here in Lawrenceburg at the event. Francis just mentioned the summit coming up November 15th. We'd love to see you, and come see our towns here on the river, Lawrenceburg and Aurora and Greendale and Dearborn County.
Thanks. I didn't mean to back up, but I had asked Mike specifically to do that, and I didn't want to forget him. So thank you, Mike. So what's next? We're moving forward. The National Park Service is wrapping up their 2-year plus project of Rivertown reviews. So where are we headed? We've got the Rivertown Review Summary, which you've seen pieces of throughout this whole presentation, and you will be getting the PDF in an email tomorrow. And also there will be a link up on the Ohio Riverway website for that. And again, someday we'll have printed copies, and I will very excitedly send some to you if you would like some. They will automatically go out to the Rivertown Review communities. We also put together a press release that your community can use. It's a template that you can use to send out to your local media to say that you have been participating in this, and that there is this now summary report out there that you are a part of. So the Rivertown Review communities can take advantage of that. I will also include that in the email tomorrow. Now that we are done with the rendezvous, we are going to be working on a Rivertown Review toolkit, putting all of these pieces into an easy to use toolkit that anybody can use. And maybe at some point you might be tapped to be a mentor of a future Rivertown who wants to undergo this process because you have such vast and wonderful experience at it. Our object is that anybody can use that to improve their town, to take another look at it from our perspective. And we will be sharing also the successes that we've talked about today for why they would want to do that. As far as the future, we feel that you're in really good hands with the Ohio River Way, that they're all about connecting communities and promoting outdoor recreation. So I don't feel like we're abandoning ship and leaving you out there without a course of action. And there will be more river towns. We already see from their paddle that they did, everybody wants to be involved in this. And whether or not they're Rivertown Review communities or just river towns, they all want to activate, connect, and recreate outdoors on the Ohio River. I encourage you to continue to use your report, share it with your elected officials, include it in plans like Mike said he did, use it in grants, and explore ways that you can benefit from connecting to other communities. All right, so now we have some kudos. This will be rapid fire. And again, this is not meant to be the Oscars. These are not necessarily awards of the best ever. But these were some things that we noticed in the towns, and they do appear in some of them appear in the project summary. So first up, we have Portsmouth, Ohio, best business poised for Rivertown changes. That River City Adventure Company, wow, I said, back up the bank truck, because that is a gold mine waiting to happen as they realize all the benefits from Portsmouth improving their connections to the river. Maysville, Kentucky, the most unique solution to a paddling access challenge. It's the hole in the wall, literally, kayak operation in Maysville. And I may have gotten some of these wrong. I'm hoping not. I spent a lot of time on it. Augusta, as far as we know, oldest continuously operating business on the Ohio River Award. It's the Jenny Ann Ferry, taking folks across the river since 1798, I think. New Richmond. So I hope that this business is still in place. They've taken a bar and grill. It is the Sunset Beach Bar and Grill restaurant in New Richmond, right on the river. And like I say, all trails lead to beer. So this is a really good example of economic development on the river. Lawrenceburg and Aurora.
That's kind of like Key West in New Richmond.
Yeah, so that's where the party's at, right there in New Richmond. In Lawrenceburg and Aurora, I thought they deserved an award for connecting communities and promoting outdoor recreation in a really tangible way with the River Cities Bike Share program. It is the best demonstration of both of those things, connecting and promoting recreation. Rising Sun, you've heard it mentioned before. They have kudos to them for their most dramatic riverfront presence. There's no denying when you're on the river what community that is. And it's inviting and exciting, and it makes you want to stop and see what else is there. Vive. I originally had the Fred the Goat as, you know, the kudos, because I just think that that's so intriguing. But Brewster sent me this, and it's the best signage improvement on the Ohio River Trail, Ohio River Way. So way to go, Vivi, taking advantage of the new Ohio River Way signage and also promoting yourself to the riverside. Carrollton, Kentucky. This isn't the best picture, but oops, go back. No, back. But you have the best confluence of and access to two major rivers at Point Park with the Kentucky and Ohio rivers. And I really don't think this picture does it justice. Some of the other ones were really more beautiful, but what a great location that you have. And Shacks Yaks, we heard someone else talk about it, and apparently, because I was getting really confused, they're in more than one location. They have a pop-up place, and then they're in Madison, and they're going other places. So what a great economic development, entrepreneurial opportunity there with Shacks Yaks. The towns of Southern Indiana. You know, I know Jim Epperson was on this call, and I didn't have a chance to hear from him. There's great things going on in the towns of Clarksville, Jeffersonville, and New Albany. And this Big Four bridge, talk about connecting communities. It's one of the places that really does connect across the river. And I love this picture. I love that pigtail turn on the Big Four bridge there. And West Point, Kentucky. So I've heard that there is an RTCA project that's happening in West Point, and it's improving and creating public spaces along the John Muir Legacy Trail. And that will connect beyond the Ohio River, I believe all the way to Key West or something like that. Russ can tell you more about that. And then our final kudos is to the Ohio River Way. We wouldn't have a project if it weren't for them in all of their iterations, whether it was the Three Retired Guys, the Ohio River Recreation Trail, or the new Ohio River Way. So kudos to you for taking it to the next step, going through strategic planning and growing pains, and you're well on your way. So we thank you. Major kudos to you. These are just some of the other pictures that John Nation and Joe Wolick and some of our visitors that did site visits to the communities took, and some of them you will see in the summary, and then some of them were just ones that we had in our file that we thought were important. And I didn't take the time to identify which communities these are, but I'm sure you recognize your own communities in these pictures. Awesome. And I just love this picture. It is in the summary report, and they are given a photo credit there, and I can't remember for the life of me who took that, but that is a pretty amazing picture right there. So that concludes our Rivertown Rendezvous, but I have a few minutes. I actually finished a few minutes ahead of time. So if we have any questions or comments, we can certainly open the floor to those and still get David Wicks out of onto his next meeting. Anyone? Jump right in there. Hey, Wendy, how about you?
No, I think it said it all. And I think Tracy talked about Portsmouth. And so, you know, we're just, I think this stuff is great. And I'll see you on the 15th at the I can't think of the name.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
You know.
Awesome.
Well, I just wanted to butt in and say, Andrea and Russ and John, it really has been a pleasure working with you. And I think the Rivertown review process has really helped establish a very firm basis for the Ohio River Way. And it's just such a great collaborative venture between our federal government, state governments, and local governments. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I look forward to getting hard copies of the report. I'm just one of those old retired guys that would prefer to read a book instead of screen. But
Yes,
thank you very
I
much.
agree. That's why I pushed to get it printed, because I find great value in being able to hand it to your community champion or your elected official rather than having them go to this website. There's something tangible when it's sitting on their desk.
Yes, and Andrea, let me just also weigh in here and thank you all and your entire national team for participating with this and pioneering the idea that you all had here with the Ohio River Way. And just so everybody's aware, the National Park Service sees this project as a model to be replicated around the country. So as you said right at the beginning, this has been recorded. It's going to be shared with your counterparts in all 50 states. The hard copy will be distributed to all of your staff as well. That when you all got together and had a 3-day retreat a month or so ago, you gave a presentation about this program, and people were really fired up, including your top people in DC. So it's all because of what communities did, digging in and seeing the value in this and bringing people out and engaging in the process and then working hard to follow up. So it's kind of fun to know that what we all collectively did together with our participating communities, local elected officials and community leaders, is potentially something that other people are going to want to run with around the country. So it's an honor to be replicated. Okay. And I also just want to point out that we had other people on the call, they had to drop off, but who were sort of statewide people. Alan Hurst is the top trail leader in the state of Indiana. And we just really appreciate his leadership and partnership with all of us, especially, from Dearborn County down to New Albany, for heaven's sakes. And then also I see that Aaron Rourke is on with us from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. He's the Scenic Rivers Coordinator. Aaron, thanks so much, buddy, for Southwest Ohio, and does a heck of a job representing ODNR with all of our communities. And I know that John Lyons was on, he may still be, and John is the Deputy Secretary for the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet. So he is representing the governor of Kentucky given his position with the cabinet on this call. And he just dropped off, I think, a moment ago, maybe he's still on. But and we also had, he just dropped off as well, Alex Scharfetter. And Alex is the district director for Congressman Brad Wenstrup, whose district is a huge, well, covers all of the Ohio counties from Hamilton all the way up to Scioto and Lawrence counties. And it's good to have people who represent federal members of Congress to be connected to our project, to be advocates for our funding requests. So in addition to those who represent communities, we have allies in different key positions at the state and federal levels. So we're grateful for that. So thank you all. Good job.
Yeah. Thank you all. Russ, do you have any parting words?
I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers. This project would not have been possible without the volunteers digging in and helping. And a huge thank you to the communities for all their efforts in helping to host the workshops and all the activities, bringing people together to do the Rivertown reviews. Hats off to all of you. Thank you.
Yes, wouldn't have happened without all of you. So thank you. It's a lot of heavy lifting by the local communities. Okay, I'm actually gonna let us all go 5 minutes early. Way to stay on course, everybody. I appreciate that. And I thank you for your participation and joining in and all your comments in the chat. And just joining us for a full 2 hours today. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you on the Ohio River Way. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. See you at the summit.
Yes, it's on my calendar. I'm hoping to make it.